Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of 12 Monkeys. So this week's episode was very interesting because it kind of shows, sort of where the daughters originally came from. The whole concept that Jennifer made her whole group, it kind of showed you where they came from because she created a group known as the Hyenas, which I thought was kind of interesting because it's like, who is the animalistic, who's the predator to monkeys? Hyenas. So she put together her own little team to go after the 12 monkeys to kind of wipe them out. She even started with the doctor that treated her because basically Jennifer was tired. I love that she put it like that. That basically she was to be what she had used in the past. She had to be whatever everyone else wanted her to be, and be molded into whoever everyone wants her to be, whether it be her dad, the 12 monkeys. Now she's kind of unshackled. Very interesting is because the people she chose for her 12 hyenas, not her 12 hyenas, but her hyenas were other patients at mental hospitals all over the place. Not just the one she was at, but other places too. And essentially waged war against them. Cole visited her in 2044, and she kind of did a thing which basically keep your eyes on the ball, but it was more so you need to pay more attention. You need to see it's not the ball you need to be focused on, it's the hand. And basically says something to him that I thought was kind of interesting. So, someone once told me that there are many endings. The right one is the one that you choose. So it kind of stuck with Cole. And I did like how it came back at the end of the episode because the one that had told some old guy that told her, the person that it was Cole. So I love that dynamic. Just obviously Jennifer knows a lot more, obviously, because she's been through it all. The Jennifer in 2044 knows a lot more than she lets on, but she can't really say anything because she's got to let things play out the way that they need to play out. She has essentially talked about the fact is that because Ramsey and Cassie are so adamant about revenge, they're going to try and hunt down the witness because they know he's in a place called Titan. But essentially, he wanted to join up with them after he, deals with this final, primary. But, Jennifer was like, don't, because it's essentially your friends, they're basically acting on revenge and it's going to end up getting them killed. Titan's not a place they can go. Maybe really referring to Titan's not the place that they should go to now. Eventually, yes, but right now when they're just clouded by revenge, it's basically go do what you need to do. And then you'll get a clear picture of the situation and you'll see things differently than they do. She even, it was kind of sad because Cassie was like, yeah, you go ahead and deal with the tall man and get your revenge because he is the one that killed your dad. And it's just kind of you kind of go on because it's kind of interesting. Cassie wants her revenge. It makes you wonder, is she really adamant about because she keeps saying it's because of what he did to me. Is it specifically because of what he made you do to that innocent little boy Sam? It's Ramsey did so much for his son just to lose him in that circumstances. Granted, we still haven't seen what Sam's situation is. But I thought it was fascinating that he ended up meeting that guy named the Keeper, which he's a very interesting person because basically he's when everyone else was just scavenging everything else, people just left the books alone. So he's he kind of took care of the books until people needed something to kind of burn for fires. So he went to the Pentagon as well as other places and just collected, in his words, collected all the ones and zeros. So he has information on the Titan, but he doesn't like people who lie. So he basically asked Ramsey and Cassie a question. First he asked Cassie's why do you hate Ramsey so much? And basically was it's because he sacrificed tons of people's lives just to save one person. And it was nope, that's a lie. It's wait, what? What's the real reason why you hate him? She said there was somebody she cared about and she sacrificed everything. Which when you think about it, obviously that person she cares about is Cole. She sacrificed her life, her sanity, her friends, Aaron, for Cole's mission. She's I sacrificed everything for him and he chose him over me. And I was just oh. And then Ramsey was asked the same question, he responded the same. It's both of the, it's kind of ironic because they both care about Cole and they've sacrificed so much for them. Like Ramsey, like stuck by him during everything. They grew up like brothers, but there are multiple occasions where he kind of chose Cassie over him. And I think specifically the moment Cassie was talking about specifically is kind of season one, like kind of the last episode of season one, when he stopped her from killing Ramsey, as well as, in season two, when she pops up and she's like, oh, you were with Ramsey? Why are you with Ramsey? Like, he still cared, he still, in her mind, still chose Ramsey over her, even though, like I said, everything he's been doing for her because he wanted her, because he cares about her and he wants her to have a place to go back. But it's understandable, I guess, from each of their perspectives, being like, okay, I get why you see, like, that's understandable why they dislike each other so much, because in a way, it's kind of like, I thought I was very important to Cole, but it seems like I'm taking second fiddle to you. It's like who's the most important to him kind of flip-flops between them, because they're both the most important people to him in his life. Ramsey for being his brother, and Cassie just for being a person that he obviously loves. So, but I also like that kind of little bit of a coup that happened with Jennifer's Hyenas, because essentially they didn't agree with what Cole was saying, because they wanted to kill the tall man and announce to the world, hey, the virus is coming, and he's like, don't do that. The moment people realize that, like, the end is coming near, people go a little crazy. They're going to turn on each other and turn into animals. He knows from firsthand, from being there. He's seen what happens when people like know what, when people know what they know. It's going to, like, even he was, when you look at it, he's kind of one of those animals too. He's just a byproduct of his environment. So it's like, he knows firsthand what that means. So he's like, don't tell the world. But, they have their own image in their minds of being like, especially that one particular girl who kind of led the coup. Because Jennifer was kind of torn, because it's like, the Hyenas are her family, dude. This is a new family she just created. But, she cares for Cole too. So she's like, what choice do I make here? She ended up kind of siding with Cole and kind of got, outed of the group. But sadly, that ended up not in their favor, because they got that the doctor who originally created the virus for the 12 monkeys, because they basically used him to lure him out. And then they were like, you know what, we can't find a tall man. The Hyenas were like, okay, we can't find a tall man, so let's just, get him to confess. But the whole thing was a trap, because, like, they knew what was going on. They actually didn't even need a doctor anymore. They'd already recreated whatever strain they needed from the virus. Like, I think in their words, the tall man was saying that basically they had already reacquired it or something like that. So it was just kind of kind of like Jennifer said, you should be watching the hands, not the ball. So that's what the situation was. And it's sad, like, everyone died. We don't know if that guy got out alive. It seems like no one got out of that building alive, even though they had a little bit of a head start, but it wasn't much of one. And I doubt any of the Hyenas survived, because none of them popped back up at the end of the episode. Because I was wondering about that. I was like, because Cole brought it up. Like, I thought about it before. I was like, none of those people, none of her daughters in the future look like any of the Hyenas. So I'm like, are they... It's like, well, are they the daughters of the Hyenas? Is that what that is? Because that's what I was going for. But then Cole was like, that he was telling Jennifer, like, yeah, you're there in 2044, because, obviously. But it's like, what about them? And none of them are there. So it makes you wonder what happens to them. Because basically Cole doesn't like the thought of putting other people in danger. Because it's kind of like he kind of reflects with Jennifer's situation, because she gathered all these forces around her, people she cared about. She lamented it afterward, because she's like, I brought them into this. This wasn't their fight. And James knows how she feels, because he did the same thing. In his mind, he did the same thing to Cassie. It's like, you bring other people into your fight. And the sad thing is, it's not you that pays the price, it's them. That's how I interpreted it. Maybe he wasn't really talking specifically about Cassie. Like I said, Cassie has told him last episode not to take blame for what happened to her. She made her own choices, but, he still feels responsible for her. And I just find it was just kind of sad, like I said, because that was kind of her family. Like, because for Jennifer, she never really had a stable family. Let's not forget her mom tried to kill her. She never saw her after that. Plus, like, her dad, like, kind of kept her locked up, didn't believe her when she said she didn't kill all those people. But, he kind of led to her kind of going a little crazy. Obviously, that being part of her being a primary is just kind of a sad byproduct, but that was how that situation was. And it's just like her dad didn't really care about it, so she really didn't have anyone. First person she ever really kind of came to care about is Cole, and on some level she kind of cares about Cassie now. But this is kind of like her first true, like, real family, someone, friend slash family. But, yeah. Because she didn't start the daughters until, like, 2017. I'm trying to remember, because I think in, like, 2017, in the first season, like, when we see kind of Cassie die, it seems like she was outside rallying up other ladies. So I'm wondering, like, are they the original daughters that she ended up kind of, I don't know. I feel like the daughters don't really have mates, so I'm guessing they're kind of like soldiers. It's like when they die in the battlefield, she acquires new kind of daughters slash soldiers to kind of fill the rank. But they're rather using the word soldier, I'd say warriors, because I don't think she wants to think of them as just like sacrificial pawns in her little army. They are like all daughters to her. That's why she refers to them as such. So I'm thinking that's probably most likely the outcome. Is like, when some dies, she just finds new daughters to, fill the ranks, I guess. But also in this episode, we also got to see a little bit of a like distance between Jones and Hannah, because obviously it's 24 years, so there's still a bit of a disconnect. Because essentially the way that she's grown up, specifically Hannah, she's kind of grown up thinking like, science is kind of a bad thing. She's like, science is what kind of started this whole situation with the virus, and like your machine only made it worse, essentially. She's very blunt about how she feels about things. And it was kind of sad that she was just kind of like saying that about Jones, because Jones did it. Like the whole reason why she made time travel was because she wanted to save her daughter's life. But it's just kind of like what you wanted to do with the machine doesn't outweigh the kind of evil it's created, and the kind of domino effects that have been created because of it. It's like science was the beginning of the end of man, essentially, and her machine will kind of like knock out the last of them, essentially, of what the 12 monkeys are trying to do. We did also in this episode, let me go back a little bit, we did see the opposite side of time hitting people, because there was a camp that got caught up in the storm, and essentially, obviously we've seen it age people like 100 years, but we also saw one particular man who got his aging was reversed because it turned him back into a baby. So that's kind of our first instance of doing that. It doesn't just push forward. Time moves kind of in wacky directions now. So it's like push forward, pull back, just depending. It's kind of acting like time is kind of going berserk. So it's kind of acting on its own. But at the very end of it, at least, they did come back towards each other. They're like, yeah, there's no time for like, little like being subtle about things. It's like we should just get it out in the open, because we've got a lot of time to catch up on between us. Because she's like, she even told her, she's like, I'm sure Hannah's not even the name that you went by that Jennifer gave you. She gave her the name Zeit, which something like that, which is basically German for time. So Jennifer and her jokes, right? But also she was also talking about her father specifically, which we saw him at the end of the episode, because apparently he's kind of working with the 12 monkeys. Apparently he's the one that builds Titan. Don't know what its purpose is. Like, I'm kind of thinking it's supposed to be a sanctuary from all this stuff happening. I don't know, because it seems like the tall man is kind of reaching the point that Olivia did, because Olivia, we see her in that wheelchair, like, she's lost all faith in the witness, because it's like, before he saw everything, he knew everything, but things are not working the same way they were supposed to. It's like, he had a clear picture of time, but it's like things are moving in completely different direction from how they were. In the words of Jennifer, times be changing. The times, they are changing. I know I screwed it up the first time. Ignore that. Which that's a reference to a song, isn't it? I just know it is. I'm not, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not hip enough to know it, I'm sure. Let's just leave it at I'm an idiot. But nevertheless, like, I'm assuming like it is a sanctuary that the tall man, because the tall man's not, I feel like 100% set on what the witness believes too. So like the witness is probably like, I don't know, not unless that is the witness's orders, but it's like essentially he's like, I'm thinking, like I said, it's a sanctuary to exist within the broken time. You know, like the select few can live there or something, or maybe it has completely some other purpose. Maybe it's not even supposed to be like a residence or a place for people to live. Makes you wonder like why Jones' ex-husband slash Hannah's dad is doing that. I mean, obviously it's because he's down on his luck because everything kind of fell apart, you know, last season for him because of the whole situation at the end. So essentially kind of getting his research and everything shut down. But it's like, why is he still working with the 12? I mean, I guess it's like, you know, someone comes up to you and they kind of sway you and just like, oh yeah, you can do this, and that. This is going to take some time. He's like, it'll take a couple of decades. So it's like, I guess that's how it exists in 2044. Apparently, Titan came up in question back in, was it 1961 or something like that? That's the date that Ramsey and Cassie got. Don't know what that's about then. Because obviously that looked like it was more closer to present time, not like future present time, but like past present time, like 2016. That's what that looked like. Because we're never really sure whatever happened to Jones' husband. His fate was kind of like, I don't know, the last time we saw him was in season 1's finale, you know, there with the machine. That was the last time we saw him. And Jones has never really brought up the fact of like, hey, like, whatever happened to your ex-husband? Personally, I think it's because she didn't care, but now we kind of know the importance. Something else we also learned in this episode, I finally paid attention. I zoomed in and learned one of the other doctor's names. So his name is Dr. Adler. Apparently him and Jones bonded over the fact that they both lost children because it's like, oh, Hannah walked up. It's like, oh, you're Hannah. Let me just get out of here. He kind of scurried out of the room, and it's because, you know, it's like, oh, Fine and Dandy Jones got her daughter back, but it's like, nope, I don't have my child back. So that was kind of sad. Because you never really get to hear like how that whole team came together necessarily. Obviously, you know, some of them are just, you know, well, specifically them. He was part of Spearhead in the past, with Jones too, and God, I can't remember his name. He's the soldier. His dad, you know, ended up staying behind at Spearhead and died last season. That guy, him and Ramsey, kind of constantly at odds. Specifically, he's at odds. He used to be at odds with Cole and Ramsey because he didn't think they were really worth the trouble that Jones was putting them through. You know, they weren't worth it. Also. Very interested to see where everything goes from here, because we also saw in this episode, like, you know, obviously like Cole, like, you know, splintered away, and then Jennifer heard her knock at the door, opens the door, and like it's Cole, but he's a little beaten up, so it's like, okay, what does that mean? So I'm quite interested to see where everything goes from here. I can only assume, like, after he comes back, he decides to kind of go after possibly Ramsey and Cassie. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe join up with Deacon, because we ain't seen him this episode. I'm sure if he had known about it, he would have gone with Cassie and Ramsey to handle, you know, to go after the big man himself. So maybe that's it, or maybe it deals with the primary they got. Essentially, it happened, I think the date the tall man gave him was like 1957 or something like that. So that's, like I said, very interested to see where we go from here. Very interested to find out what Titan's about. Like I said, my money is still on Sam being the witness, because it's like, it just, to me, it's just too coincidental for him just to have popped out of time like that. Or maybe he serves some other purpose. Maybe he's taken out of the picture so that Ramsey will act in a certain way. Not saying Ramsey's the witness, but just something else. I don't know. Either Sam's, like I said, I assumed that the person that grabbed Sam's hand when he ended up in that other time period was the witness, but maybe it was someone else. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to really wait and see. I'm very curious to find out the true identity of the witness, to see is the witness just a man, or does he actually have special powers? But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.